I'm Mark Perisky. I'm the pastor here at the Road Church, and I just want to say it's a pleasure to have you in this wonderful building. We love doing this on the first Sundays of the month, the different programs we have, which Donna will tell you more about, the person in charge of the whole program. But I just want to thank you for being here today and being a part of this. Looking forward to this greatly, the lecture that Steve's going to provide. So this is Donna, and she's going to tell us a little bit more.
Hi, how are you? Some of you I've seen before, some are new faces. Welcome. Appreciate you all coming. How many people here are familiar with Steve Fagan, either in his works, his lectures, or his... Okay, so most people. So I don't have to tell too many people about Steve at all, and I'm going to let Steve do a lot of his own talking. Just wanted to introduce him really quickly. He's a longtime columnist with the New London Day, and he's author of AMC's Best Day Hikes in Connecticut and Rhode Island, and he will be selling his book next door after the program, so if anybody's interested, you can come back and talk to Steve afterwards and buy a copy of his book. He's going to present his illustrated talk featuring some of the photos of his favorite local hiking and kayaking destinations. They're absolutely fabulous. I got a sneak peek, so yay me. He's climbed all 67 of New England peaks over 4,000 feet. That's quite a feat in and of itself, isn't it? And he's kayaked most major rivers and lakes in the Northeast. And I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself in just a few minutes. But I also want to make sure everybody knows that our bathrooms are next door, so if anybody needs to leave, you have to go across the way into the building right next door. You go in the door, make a left. There's a bathroom on the left and a bathroom on the right. Help yourself. There's no running water in here since the building is 1800s. I will give you some information about where you can find other events that we have coming up, including our Chowder Festival and Walt Woodward, et cetera, after Steve is done. So give me just a couple minutes after Steve is done, and then he can run over and get himself set up, and I'll give you a little bit of background on what we got going on here. Okay, so everyone just please welcome Steve Fagan.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. This is really exciting for me. I've given a lot of talks at libraries and schools and bookstores and outdoor places and so forth, but this is my first time in a church, so it's pretty cool. I was tempted to go up there to the pulpit, but I think I better stay here. In a lot of ways, it was kind of I got an email a couple of years ago from the editor of Appalachian Mountain Club asking if I'd be interested in revising their hiking book on day hikes in Rhode Island and also Connecticut. And I said, wow, that's great. And then I'm thinking, on the other hand, I'm thinking, you sure you have the right guy? Because if people have read my column once in a while, you know that friends and I have a tendency to get lost. And I can tell the story because she's not here. So, but I will. In fact, Phil is here, so he can verify. Phil Pluff. He's one of my regular friends that we hike with. A couple of years ago, we were hiking the trail, the north-south trail, which goes the length of Rhode Island from the Mass border all the way to Blue Shutters Beach in Charlestown. And we did it in stages because it's like 78 miles or something. So every time we had to go, we'd get two cars, leave one car, and then hike to the end and have to come back and get the other one. So anyway, we had a really long hike one day, and it was like 15 miles or something like that. We're getting close to the end, and it was a hot day, and we were kind of miserable, and Maggie said something like, well, I feel really good when your car is there to get back to your car. And I say, my car? No, it's supposed to be your car. And I go, oh no. So we were thinking, what do we do? We had to either hike all the way back or hitchhike or call an Uber or something like that. But just then, there was a woman who was raking leaves in her yard and said, hey, what are you bums doing out there hiking when I'm working hard here? You know, and I said, madam, this is your lucky day. And I said, I'll tell you what, if you give me a ride back to my car, my friends, Phil and Maggie, will rake your lawn. And that's what we did. And that's been sort of our modus operandi. I call it the Blanche Dubois School of hiking. We always rely on the kindness of strangers. And that sort of fits into the way my style also. I like having a guidebook, and it was hard work. It was sort of something different for me to really pay attention to things like elevation gains and all sorts of very technical detail. So I like to think of a guidebook as sort of it's a guide, it's not a mandate. So I like exploring. If you come to a path that you say, where does that go? I wonder, take it. So, it's good to have a book and good to follow directions on the one hand. On the other hand, it's good to explore. And there's also a quote from Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's, all who wander are not lost. And so I sort of abide by that also. So this is sort of a two-part presentation. And there'll be a little video in between the two parts. We'll start with hiking and then we'll work our way to kayaking. So, hit the trail. This is, have anyone hiked on Chauncey Peak? This is Chauncey Peak. It's part of this beautiful ridge. It's called the Spine of Connecticut. It goes all the way from the Long Island Sound up into the Mass border, the Metacomet Ridge. And this is a ridge. This peak, Chauncey Peak, is right in the middle of it. It's a wonderful spot. It's very accessible. And what's instructional about it, instructional also, is that if you looked on one side, you're looking out this way towards Sleeping Giant and New Haven and so forth. But if you walked another 50 feet to the other side of that ridge, you'd come across this huge quarry. And it's an active quarry, and they have payloaders and backhoes and all kinds of heavy equipment. And it sort of reinforces one of the missions that I like to try to reinforce in my writing. And that's sort of giving credit to the organizations that maintain these trails and public areas, and also not just maintain them, but purchase them. It takes a lot of money, takes a lot of effort, and a lot of their sort of unsung heroes. Groups like I'm sure people are aware of, or maybe belong to Avalonia. We have here Ann Norwalk, who's the Mashantucket Land Trust that evolved into Avalonia. GOSA is one of my favorite organizations, brought in open space. All these people work behind the scenes, doing hard work, contributing time and labor and money and so forth to set aside these properties for future generations. One of the groups also is the Connecticut Forest and Park Association, and they are responsible for maintaining 825 miles of the blue trails in Connecticut. And there's a group within that called the Rock Stars, and I joined them one day. It's a great volunteer organization, or a little subset of the Connecticut Forest and Park Association. And they have all kinds of equipment, and they're all volunteers. They come and we spent a whole day building stone steps right on Chauncey Peak. They go all over the state doing this kind of work. It's really phenomenal. Mount Misery, people have been out there. Yeah. Again, that's part of Patchogue State Forest. It's 27,000 plus acres. That's the largest state forest in Connecticut. And it shows how fragile things are. I remember back, some of you, looks like you've been living here a while, you may remember there was plans years ago for a jet port. And Bill Stanley was the state senator, and he proposed, and they were going to basically pave over half of Patchogue, and it was going to. But now you have this magnificent resource that's open to the public for hiking, and it's preserved. It's beautiful. That's my friend Marco, and he does that every time we get to a peak. People hiked out on Block Island. I hadn't done that until a couple of years ago. In fact, when I started working on the book, because the book covers Rhode Island trails as well as Connecticut, so I did all the Rhode Island hikes, and we went out there for one day. We managed to squeeze a lot in there, and this is Clay Head. Beautiful, beautiful trail, one of the most magnificent trails. As you can see, it overlooks the ocean. We continued hiking on that all the way to North Lighthouse Point, where we saw, I don't know how many seals were out there, hundreds of them. This is also, this is Black Rock. It's also another wonderful trail. So a lot of people go out there to hit the beach or ride their bikes, but there's wonderful trails out there. I think almost half the island is designated as nature preserves with hiking trails. People here, I'm sure, have hiked the cliff walk. It goes about 3.7 or so miles each way, and most of it is, as you know, going by the mansions, and it's beautiful, nice and smooth and flat, but it's really some gnarly sections of it when you get closer to Bailey's Beach at the end of it. This is another example of areas that, this is the White Memorial Foundation, and that's in Litchfield in western Connecticut. And it's another example of areas that a family owned this beautiful, big parcel of land. When they were getting older, they didn't have any heirs, or their heirs weren't interested in maintaining the farm or whatever it is they were doing there. So they established a foundation, a conservation area, and they opened up the trails, beautiful trails. This is have anyone been to Bear Cave? A lot of people don't know about it. It's kind of interesting because it's right on the it's right on the Narragansett Trail, which goes from Lantern Hill. Excuse me, I'm just cutting you people off. I'm sorry. Goes from Lantern Hill all the way to Hope, the Pond, Asheville Pond in Hopkinton. There's a group now from the Narragansett chapter, the Appalachian Mountain Club, that's talking about extending it to the original terminus of it, which would be Warden Pond. But anyway, this is right, it's on Bullet Ledge, which, you know where Wyosset Lake is. If you join the trail, head north toward Route 49, there's a trail that sort of veers off and goes over Bullet Ledge, and that's where the trail is. It's a huge cavern. It's not a limestone cavern. It's a tectonic one, I guess, that's formed by earthquakes and glacier activities kind of crashing the boulders, but it created this wonderful cavern. So it's kind of cool if you're ever out there. I'm sorry, that first one wasn't, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. That's Bear Cave. That's Phil, by the way. This is called the Fat Man Squeeze. That's my friend Carl. He's not fat. But this is in Chatfield Hollow. People hike out there at all? That's another wonderful spot. I mean, I think there's 250,000 acres of parks in Connecticut. It's phenomenal. I think we're fourth in the country in terms of area that's set aside for hiking and so forth, in terms of the area and population. How many people have gone up there on the first? Okay, I see a lot of hands coming up. If you haven't done it, put that on your list of things to do. It's a wonderful thing. You have to get up early, like around, and hit the trail by 6 a.m. This is Lantern Hill, and the Westerly Morris dancers, Morris men, come out and do a little song and dancing and so forth. It's a really wonderful event.
35 years.
35 years. How many have you done, Ann? All of them? All of them. This is Lantern Hill. This is the one snowfall we had this year, so my son and I went up there. Kind of disappointing year for snow, but it was nice. This is part of, if you know where Sand Hill Road is in Voluntown, right? It's not far from the Pendleton Hill Church in North Stonington. Anyway, the trail goes from there all the way to Green Falls Pond. And you go through this beautiful ravine. You think it's like the forest primeval. And yet, a couple of centuries ago, or 150 years or so ago, this was mills and a bustling community. It was really built up back then. And it's amazing how nature has able to reclaim itself. So even though you see a farm field that's being plowed over and converted to a housing subdivision or things like that, and you think it's gone forever, well, it may be our lifetime, but somehow nature will find a way to recover and hopefully regain. So this is a beautiful spot, and the Connecticut Forest and Park Association they maintained this trail, and they built all the bridges and so forth. Watch Hill is another great spot. This is right near, there may be a wedding there this year, I understand. Taylor Swift is right. But you can go, when I was looking at a map, I realized that you can walk on sand for all the way to Weekapaug, and it's one of the largest, except for Cape Cod, in our area, of unbroken sand. Even though there's different beach names, it's all the same sand. So you can go all the way from Watch Hill to Weekapaug. It's kind of nice. And Apple Point is, I'm sure everyone's been out there. It's one of the great birding areas. There's been, I don't know, does anybody explain what's going on out there with this dispute over access? I can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's been in your paper a lot.
Yeah, but I still can't figure it out. There's some dispute, but so take advantage of it while you can. This is another part of the Narragansett Trail, and this is one of the most challenging sections. Years ago, friends and I did the whole trail, like 22 miles from. This is close to the end of it, but this gorge is phenomenal. It's pretty challenging, but when you get to the top of it, from the top of it, that's looking out at Long Pond. And if you cross over to the other side of the trail, you're looking at Ell Pond, ELL Pond. And that's one of the largest bogs in the Northeast. It's phenomenal. I consider myself so lucky to be able to go with people like Maggie and Phil. Maggie is phenomenal. As you know, Maggie Jones, her knowledge of nature is great, so she can identify any bird or tree or frog or whatever. I think she took this picture. Ferns it's been a phenomenal year, even though it's been dry. It's been great. This is also near, off the Narragansett Trail between Wyassup Lake and High Ledge. Barn Island is another example of how you don't mess with Mother Nature. Back in the 30s, the town of Stonington was worried about mosquitoes, and so they dug all these canals to try to drain the swamps or drain the wetlands area. And that sort of worked for a while, but it also did away with all the shorebirds that used to migrate there. And so to do that, then they built these impoundments, but that caused other complications. So every couple of years they had to do some adjustment. But now I think they're pretty much through for a while, I hope. But it's a wonderful area. People here know Markham Starr. He lives in North Stonington, and he used to work at the seaport, but he's become an incredible historian and also exploring the origins, the provenance of stone walls. Years ago, you can't go anywhere without seeing a stone wall, and people just always said, oh, it's, colonials built it, farmers built it back in the 1700s or 1800s to clear the fields and so forth, or to contain animals or foundations. But Mark has written a book that's great, and it really traces a lot of these to Native American origins that go back hundreds of thousands of years, long before the arrival of Europeans during colonial times. And we went out with him. This is at the Tri-Town Forest Ridgeline Trail, something like that. If you haven't been there, that's a wonderful trail. It's off of Miller Road in North Stonington. Bluff Point. I have this is near and dear to my heart. When I first moved to this area in the early 1970s, I used to run with Johnny Kelly, who was the Boston Marathon winner, back in 57. But anyway, he and his team used to run out there. And then from that, I got appointed to a committee. The state had purchased owned part of Bluff Point, and then they were in the process of acquiring the rest of it. Now it totals 800 acres. But in so doing, they decided that they wanted to come up with a plan to see what are we going to do with this nice, beautiful peninsula. And so they hired an engineering firm, and they came out with a report that basically was going to turn it into like a Coney Island, and it was going to be Ferris wheels and boardwalks and a huge road that went out to the middle, and also they were going to fill in that beautiful salt pond at the end for a 6,000 car parking lot. So we said, wait a minute, why don't we have a better idea? How about if you just sort of left it the way it is, leave it the way it is? And so the state, to its infinite wisdom back then, they created the first and now still only coastal reserve in Connecticut. And so I'm really proud to have been part of that effort. And we had hearings back then, and people, when you first mentioned that we were going to do that, people said, well, how are we going to get to the beach? You know, their only concept of getting there was to get in their car and get until their axles are in the sand. And he said, well, you know, we can try walking. As people who know now, it's one of the most beautiful, well-attended parks in Connecticut. And any day of the week, not just weekends, you can find mothers pushing strollers and people riding bikes and horseback riders sometimes. So it's a wonderful resource. This is also on Bluff Point. I love going out. I like hike. We hike year round, and I also kayak year round. But it's nice, no bugs, fewer people, and different funny sights occasionally. Haley Farm is another that's contiguous to Bluff Point, and some of you probably familiar with the story of Roscoe Merritt and the rock pulling machine, and Haley, who was a fishmonger from New York, and became sort of a gentleman farmer. And this became the birth of the local environmental movement, because this government was going to be building Coast Guard housing out there. They're going to sell most of that land, the former farm, for housing, and that inspired people like Sidney Van Zandt and a group of other people to form a group, and the state says, oh, okay, well, if you want to do that, you have to buy it. And so they held bake sales and car washes and raffles and rock concerts and so forth. And that really was the beginning, and from that became Ghosts of the Groton Open Space Association. That was around the time also that Mashantuckets was building up. And now you have, what, 5,000 acres or something? But anyway, this was really the seminal point in time and place right here. Haley Farm was really all the local conservation movement, really, I think, can be traced right back there. And it's great for year-round. You can ski, cross-country, ski, snowshoe, and whatnot. People, you know, how many people have climbed Monadnock? Oh, good. I think it lays claim to being maybe one of the most climbed mountains in the country or the world, or Fuji might have the record, but it's right up there. And what's interesting about it, it's so accessible. What I try to do, I mean, I do go to some remote areas, but I like to try to promote. I mean, there's some things right here in our backyard. This isn't necessarily our backyard, but it's close enough. You can get there and do it and come back home in time for dinner. But what's interesting about Monadnock, it looks like a 6,000 foot mountain, but it's only 3,000 feet. So it's sort of artificial. I think they burned it years ago for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure, but to create a bald summit. But it's still remarkable. You can see Boston and so forth. Satchwas Point, people have been out there, I assume. If you haven't, that's another wonderful spot. Wait until, you can go anytime, but winter is a really nice time to go there because you get a lot of birds, winter migrating birds, harlequin ducks and and so forth. And if you're lucky, you might see a snowy white owl. Chapman Falls, people know the history of that, the origins of Devil's Hop Yard. This 8 Mile River came down, it went down this ravine, and supposedly the devil was angry for some reason, and he stomped up the hill and created those potholes that created the falls, the Chapman Falls. Okay, let me switch here for a second. We're going to switch to the water portion here.
Now we're here on the Salmon River. Jan is in the blue boat and Carl is in the yellow. We're approaching the broken dam. You want to go first, Jan? All right.
I'm in the blue boat.
This river is one of the few Class A rivers. It's one of the cleanest rivers in the state. Okay, I guess I'm next. It's about 10 miles long. Its mouth is at the confluence of the Jeremy and Blackledge rivers in East Hampton, right near the Marlboro, across the border. And then it empties into the Connecticut River.
Huh? Yeah, camera, no, it's a camera mounted on the deck of the boat.
What river was it?
That was the Salmon River.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And what's interesting about this is we took advantage of, that's something I try to do every year. It's best runnable in spring when high water. But actually I went there this last June, we had all that rain, and my son and I went and we did it one more time this early summer or late spring. Let me go back here. What I was going to say was that the Salmon River also was it was right where we went over the dam. That was an old factory there, and that whole area was built up, and now it's one of the most beautiful rivers in Connecticut.
It's the tributary that comes into it.
Jeremy, Blackledge.
The train trestle, the old train.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah,
That's part of the trail, the airline trail that goes through there.
used to go up there when I was a kid. State filled in the swimming pool with rocks.
Huh. Oop. Guess I have to fast forward here. This was last spring, just a couple months ago. Connecticut River, it used to be a real treat to go out there in winter time and see the eagles that migrated here to the mouth of the river near Lyme. But what happily, the eagles are everywhere year round. I live on Long Pond, in Ledyard near North Stonington, and we have, I haven't seen the nest yet, but there are eagles there all the time. They're Mystic River, they're Groton New London Airport, there's some. So I'm sure people here have seen eagles, but a good, reliable place to see them is in winter. And so we kayak year round. We put on dry suits. That's my son, Tom. Now, how many people, if you haven't done this, in fact, now is right almost in prime time, get out to the mouth of the, or near Lyme on the Connecticut River and see it's called the murmuration. And the swallows, they migrate, they're flying down from points north and they wind up all the way in South America. But they stop all the time, every year on Goose Island. And I think the reason why they stopped there is because there was a program to clear the Phragmites, those tall grasses on a lot of the islands near that, but they left Goose Island alone. And it's only about less than a mile north of the Baldwin Bridge, which goes from, Lyme to Old Saybrook. But anyway, you get there at sunset, and all the swallows come gathering there. It's phenomenal. As many as 800,000 or so. And they do what this thing is called a murmuration. It's different every time. They swirl around. It's like a vortex, like a whirlpool. And then they all settle at once, they come down. So Roger Torrey Peterson, who's this eminent ornithologist who lived near there, and he didn't know about that. He lived there for 30 years, and a neighbor said, "Hey, Roger, have you been out?" He said, "No." And so nobody knows exactly when they started doing this. But I've been going there every year for the last decade or more, and in fact, I'm hoping to get there at the end of next week. If they're good towards the end of the month, then they start moving farther south. But it's been such a warm season; they may stick around longer. But make a plan. You can put in at either at Pilgrim Landing if you have a kayak or canoe or a small powerboat, or also at the DEP headquarters a little bit farther south of the Baldwin Bridge. But you won't regret it. This is on the Connecticut River. I've done the whole river all the way from Canaan, Vermont, down to Old Saybrook years ago by canoe. But I get out there. It's a wonderful spot to paddle. Fisher's Island. Seals again. I was out there at Fisher's Island last week, and we saw seals out there. But they're also mostly a winter migrant, and there's an island or an area called Hungry Point near the eastern end of the island on this side, and there's a big colony that gathers there. Here's a different, Bluff Point is not just a great hiking destination, it's a great paddling. You can put in on the Pequannock River, and if you go at high tide, you can sort of sneak through one of those canals that parallel the Pequannock River. It runs between the river and the mainland, and it's great. Alewife Cove, this is another thing here. So people wouldn't think necessarily about New London as being a great kayak destination. If you go you have to go really at high tide, but it's wonderful. I did a program with a Boston TV thing, and they shot some drone video. It was great. I mean, that's one thing that continues to inspire me, that they have these little enclaves right next to an urban area. I mean, we're like 50 feet from Ocean Beach to the water slide and stuff there, but it looks like Bermuda. I took that one night right off our dock on Long Pond. Pawcatuck River is another example of how people have figured out a way to bring back the alewives, which are migratory fish. They're bait fish, and everything feeds on alewives, from bass to trout and then animals also. And for years, the Pawcatuck River, like most of the rivers, were dammed. And a few years ago, they removed the last dam. They also put some fish ladders in, so now the alewife can migrate. They're anadromous fish, which means they live in salt water, but they breed in fresh water. And anyway, they come up and migrate, and they haven't been doing that for 300 years or something. So now the alewife can swim free. So this isn't too far from here. There's a group, this is kind of a fun thing. A group of women from Stonington, and they go year round, just jump in the water, and they don't just stand there. I do that on New Year's Day, but we just jump in and jump. They actually stand there for like 10 minutes. Every day? Every day. Every day they do that year round. So I joined them one February. It was like 12 degrees and it was cold. Newport is another great spot for paddling. We usually put in at Jamestown. It's kind of hairy sometimes crossing Narragansett Bay. Well, we did it on July 4th, and it happened to coincide with one of the jazz fests or something, like we paddled right up to Fort Adams and listened to music and went under the Claiborne Pell Bridge there. Huh? I haven't done that. That's on my list. The Narrow River is great. Yeah. This was just last week. We were up in, or 2 weeks ago, we were up in Maine, Booth Bay Harbor. Another great spot. In fact, I'm leaving tomorrow for Maine and New Hampshire. There's a board. Anybody been to Umbagog? It's a national wildlife refuge on a lake up there. So I like staying close to home when I can, but it's nice to be inspired and get out of town too. This is on the Hudson River. I've circumnavigated, gone around it a few times, once in a race, but this was just sort of, and this guy Andy Lynn, whom I'm going with tomorrow, he was the former planning director for the city of New York, but he also lives part-time in New York. So it was great going with him because he pointed out every,
The two buildings there,
yeah.
the Twin Towers.
Yeah, this was an early, this was, that's not, this, I went there before 9/11, about a month before. This was a couple of years ago. So that's, oh yeah.
Well, there's two, still two.
Yeah.
So is that, what bridge is that?
That's the GW, George Washington Bridge.
So is that New Jersey then on the right?
Yep, New Jersey on the right
Okay.
and Manhattan on the left. Then you go down, we put in at near Spoyton Duyvil on the Harlem River, and then went down the Hudson, and then go around the Battery, and then back up the East River. You have to time it right because you don't want to go through Hellgate when it's really rolling, and then back along the Harlem. It's about 28 miles, I think. Moose Lake, Paguntic Lake. It's I go up to Range. It's in the Rangeley Lakes area, which is western Maine, and there's a whole chain of lakes. It's part of what it's this trail called the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, which goes from 700 miles all the way from New York to Fort Kent, Maine. But this is one of them, and it's a great organization that sets up campsites or office campsites and maps and so forth, and off you go. And we went, and we didn't see more than 2 or 3 people the whole time. That's the Essex River race. That's in Massachusetts. Oh, this was when my son and I were kayak canoeing actually on the Boundary Waters. He was a kayak guide up in Minnesota. And anyway, I was looking at maps, and I kept looking farther and farther east from Minnesota. I noticed this ring. This is a NASA photograph, and it's called Manicouagan. And it was formed by an asteroid that slammed into Earth 200 and something million years ago. And it created this perfect donut. And I said, I wonder if you can kayak around that. And sure enough, I saw, you can see on the right-hand corner, there's a road, one road. It's about 800 miles from here. So I organized a group, and 4 of us went up there. And I thought it was going to take us, a month or something like that to get around it. It was 125 miles, but they warned it was very remote. We didn't see anybody, but we managed to do it in, I think, 4.5 days. This is one. That's one of the views from that. Again, we were there for just a week, and we didn't see another person at all. Phil, you recognize this? Yeah, sure. That's Phil in the bow of my tandem kayak, Lake Champlain. Did that a couple of times. Once I put in, at the northern end of Lake Champlain, Rouse's Point, right on the Canadian border, and wound up going down Champlain, then Lake George, then back to the Hudson, and finished by going around the Statue of Liberty. And so I'm normally pretty, casual about, where you drift, and it's sometimes easier just to ask forgiveness than permission. But in this case, I think we decided we wouldn't trespass. And that's in my backyard. I like eating outside, And that's it. Thank you. I'm always eager for new places to explore, so if anybody have any suggestions or comments, feel free to ask away. Well, you've been great. It's been a really attentive audience. I'll be next door, and we can chat more there. Thank you very much. Oh. Yep.
Let's give another hand for Steve and his wonderful presentation. Please join us next door. There'll be food and refreshments. You can, again, purchase Steve's book back there. You can sit and chit-chat. You can talk with friends that you haven't seen in a while. You can talk with new friends that you'd like to make today. That'd be wonderful. I just want to give you, we've been doing these first Sunday presentations for a little over a year now, and it's been successful, and it's getting more successful. So if there's something that you'd like us to present, or you know of someone who would like to present, please let us know. That's how we found some of our presenters, and everything is free to the community. Donations are more than welcome, because then we, again, use it for future presentations. Our October presentation, I don't know if any of you have been around long enough to remember the world-famous Road Church Chowder Festival that used to be going on, and it kind of died off for a little bit for reasons that we had no control over, but we are bringing back the Road Church Luncheon October 4th, which is a Saturday. It's the first Saturday of the month rather than the Sunday. It'll be 11 to 2. And it's going to be a fundraiser for Operation Fresh Start. So please come and join us for that. Look for our events on our website. It's fccstonington.org, First Congregational Church, stonington.org, so fccstonington.org. November, Walt Woodward is going to be coming back again. He's going to be talking about Robert Frost in words and music, so he'll be doing a musical presentation. And another new event for us in December, Jason Castigway is coming back again. He's been blind since birth. He plays the piano and sings and plays several instruments, the harp. I can't remember the other ones, but he's really wonderful. Well, in addition to that, we've decided to do a little winter wonderland in our back field. So that'll open up probably the day right after Thanksgiving. We'll have it open up free to the public again. If you've noticed, we're starting to do some work off to the Flanders side of the property. Eventually, we'll have walking trails there with some a daffodil hill right on the corner of Pequot and Flanders. So we're looking forward to that as well. So please, if you'd like to be reminded of upcoming presentations, either check our website or there's a sign-in sheet right up front. Just be really neat so we can actually read your name and information and email, and we'll try to send you some information. I'll guarantee you that we're not 100% really good at it, but we'll try. We're a small group of people trying to do a lot of things, so we do our best. But please feel free to sign up and come on next door and join us. Again, thank you, Steve. We appreciate you coming out and taking your time.